So this is a C++ example, very simple. It's got a button, it's got a label, it's got 2 buttons, 2 labels, and 2 memos. And underneath, I do a couple things. In order to get from FireMonkey and get the devices, I want to include the media header file. The media header file defines interfaces that I can use, in particular the TCapture device manager, and also functionality that's associated with it. And system.sensors.hpp I'm using down here to get to this T-sensor manager. So whenever you see units that have system dot in front of it, then that's platform agnostic. That means that you can use those interfaces in those libraries in both VCL and FireMonkey applications. If you see something with FMX or VCL in front of it, then it's platforms, it's framework specific. So this is the FMX media HPP interface file, which allows us to look at the different capture devices that are associated. And so on the code behind, let me scroll over. I say, okay, let's get the number of devices. So the way I do that is I go to the capture device manager, and I use the current device manager, because you could install your own device managers, and I get the count of the number of devices that it finds, if there are any. And then I simply iterate through the number of devices and use the device manager to get the name. Through the devices array, I get the name of each device that's found. And the same thing for sensors. I set the set. First, I have to activate the sensor manager. So I'll set its active property to true. Once I do that, then I have access to the sensor manager, and I can get the current count of the number of sensors. And then I can go through the sensor manager and the sensors array for those that are found, and I can get the names of them. And this works on Windows and Macintosh. And then I'll switch over to the Samsung Slate so we can see something that has more devices. In this case, in my VM, I only have mapped through the microphone. And over here, and on Windows, I'm using GeoSense for Windows, which is a free download 32-bit and 64-bit sensor driver that uses Wi-Fi and TCP/IP to find an approximate location. Since my MacBook Pro on Windows doesn't have a GPS device. Let's go and run this on Macintosh as well. So let's set the target platform to Macintosh, and this also works on 64-bit. And let's make sure now that profile should be set properly. Let's test it. It's still okay. So I can go in and run this example on Macintosh, and so it'll compile it, link it, and deploy it over to the Macintosh site and start it up again, going through the platform assistant server. And when it's done, then we can switch over, and now we've got our Macintosh version. So if I get devices, it turns out that on my Macintosh I have several devices. I have the line input, I have the built-in microphone that's built in, I've installed Soundflower, which lets me associate audio with other applications, and I've got the built-in camera. So the built-in iSight camera, which I didn't map through VMware over to the Windows side. So that's available. And for sensors, I have, didn't give me a name, but it's the name is the location sensor, which also Macintosh provides. That's, sensor management. You've got support for whatever kinds of devices get installed, and device drivers that get installed, whether you've got temperature sensors, external, usually in Windows and some of the PCs, in Macintosh, it's devices that might get plugged in through USB, but announce themselves through device drivers, so they show up through the APIs. And you go to the Windows on Windows, you can go to the Windows 7 and Windows 8 sensor APIs to get the whole range of device types that are available. There's RFID, there's for GPS, there's a GPS device, there's dead reckoning, triangulation, there's environmental sensors like pressure, temperature, wind speed, things you might have a weather station plugged in through USB port, for example, would have a driver that would expose a bunch of these sensors. And the two that are available in FireMonkey out of the box are listed down here. The location sensor that Darren showed earlier, that works on Windows and Macintosh, and motion sensor for Windows. And it also tells you what they're supported on, so you can see as you hover over them which platforms that they work and are supported for. What I'm going to do is open up that same devices and sensors application, and it's got the same code behind that's going to go and show me all the devices and all the sensors. And let's run this example. So in this case, on the Samsung Slate, which is running Windows 8 Professional, it has two cameras. It has a forward-facing and a backward-facing camera. So there's the two webcams. It's got a microphone and a line. It's got two microphones. Well, actually, one of them is USB audio, which comes as part of the docking station. And for sensors, it has several sensors. It's got device orientation. So if I switch my orientation, it should flip. Now it's flipped. I think it's got the 3-axis accelerometer, and the reason there isn't a 6-axis accelerometer right now, like angular acceleration and motion speed, is that Samsung so far, they haven't shipped a Windows 8 6-axis accelerometer yet. And I've got an ambient light sensor since this is a tablet or Slate device. If I take it outside, you want to be able to control the way you display and how bright you display or not things. So there's an ambient light. And sometimes there's a location sensor shows up because I've also installed GeoSense for Windows. But that's just a look at C++ and FireMonkey 2, getting at devices and sensors in code, and you can, again, do all sorts of things here in sensor management. This is the implementation of media support. It's written in Delphi for FireMonkey, but under the covers, we generate the header file for you for all of that. And the same thing goes for the sensors. We can open those as well. And so in that case, you have things like sensors. You've got orientation sensor type, and these are all the different types that come from the API. So for example, location sensor type, you have GPS, static, you have lookup, you have triangulation, broadcast, dead reckoning, some other. For environmental sensor, you have temperature, atmospheric pressure, humidity, wind speed, wind direction. So I guess I'm going to have to get a computerized weather station that I can plug into my device. Electrical sensor. If you have something like that, then you'd get voltage, current, capacitance, resistance, inductance, electrical power, potentiometer, and mechanical sensor, some kind of switches, a multi-value switch. Looks like pressure, strain, gauge kinds of devices. Maybe you're doing some machine automation. Biometric, human presence. I'd like that one so you can't sneak up on me. Human proximity, even better for like a robotic system that might be an automatic defense mechanism against somebody coming close to you. And light sensor, that's the ambient light. Here's the RFID and a barcode reader. You can take control of all of that.